Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Choice Solutions webinar with Assured DP. We'll get started at 2 o'clock, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick reminder. So at the conclusion of this webinar, there will be a survey that's populated in a web browser. It'll also be sent out in the 24-hour post-event email tomorrow afternoon. And make sure to fill out that quick 5 or 6 question survey. So then you can get your pumpkin cheesecake just in time for Thanksgiving in a couple weeks. So make sure to complete that survey at the end of this. Again, it'll auto-populate in a web browser when we end the webinar. So it's 2 o'clock Central on the dot. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Dana Steinloggy with Choice Solutions.
Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, everybody. We're super appreciative of your time. We never take it for granted just to make time and join us for insights and education on things that we believe might be super relevant for your organizations and help you out with challenges you might be working towards. So one of the partners and co-lead up our sales team, just again on behalf of our team, excited to have you here. We've got a lot of great information. I want to keep kind of what I'm going to share pretty brief, but our team, our company, we've had the opportunity to help many organizations across central U.S., Southeast. Things that we really like to engage and help on are, initiatives you might be working on to modernize your workspace. You, as an organization, you're in that cloud transformation and in that journey. So kind of going from your legacy to adopting the right cloud approach. And obviously there's a lot of conversations and a lot of changes in all parts of your infrastructure, including how you're doing your backup and handling recovery in that process too. So and security changes a lot, and security is a huge obviously factor, cybersecurity in everything right now, especially as we're talking about how to back up your environment, make sure you got good backups, but also the ability to recover timely and to have confidence there to protect against disasters, but also cybersecurity incidents as well. So that's a huge part of obviously the focus and what our team's going to be sharing on today. In our partnership kind of with Rubrik along with Assured DP as a service. So and that really kind of comes in to help with your staff, your organizations, everybody from the small organizations to the large. You guys, everybody's facing IT constraints, right, with your team, whether it be challenges with keeping up with the day-to-day upkeep or executing on new projects or hiring, developing, retaining today's top talent. It's a challenge for everybody. And so some of what our team is going to be sharing on some ideas with you today are ways through our partnership and through the services to be able to help, provide partnership, provide a kind of a winning team to help you be prepared and to feel good about the kind of the posture of your backups and your environment and the approach and strategy that your business is taking. So that's a little bit just on us. I mean, as a partner, as a company, we're here for the life cycle. So we want to help you guys learn about and adopt new solutions, and we want to see you guys be successful with them over time. And it's a little thing, but care is something that we pride ourselves in. And if something you invest in through us, something that we want to see you be successful with. Your success, it matters deeply to us. It's how we've had the opportunity to earn various opportunities to serve and assist others, and it's just it's something we enjoy doing. So today we're going to focus on how you can have your cake and eat it too, and I'd love to get you introduced to a couple of resources from our team. Randy Kern, who directs and leads up a lot of cloud architecture and cloud services on our staff, as well as Chris Watson, who's IT security manager, and get those guys introduced to you guys and kind of go through some great information. So we got a great lineup between Choice Solutions, Assured DP. Very grateful to also have a customer to join and share as well. Again, there'll be a survey at the end for obviously the pie, but also if there's anything we covered today that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, just let us know and we can set up additional conversations. So again, on behalf of our team, we're grateful. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Randy and Chris. Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, everybody, welcome. Thanks for being here today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy afternoons to come and join us for a little bit. Obviously, I'm sure the pumpkin cheesecake had nothing to do with why you're here, but right for lunch, it's a great time for that, right? So Again, as Dana mentioned, I'm Randy Kern. I'm a director of cloud services here at Choice Solutions. I actually had the pleasure of initially getting introduced to the assured data protection team very early on, and we've actually been using it as part of our managed services offerings to a number of our customers. And we found it to be a really great product, fits a lot of our needs from a service provider as well as from a partner perspective from that aspect. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Chris.
Hey, thanks, Randy. So one of the things we're going to look at with this is how does this fit into your larger cyber risk strategy? Next slide. There it is. So what does data protection look like today? How does it fit into my overall risk strategy? And that includes your cyber risk. That includes just your overall risk strategy that the C-suite and your company leadership is worried about. And so the little bit I'm going to share with you today is really speaking to the business. I know Randy is going to definitely hit on the architecture, and of course our colleagues over at Assured are going to fill in the blanks on a lot of those. But data protection is becoming more and more important these days. I remember, 10 years ago it was just an infrastructure problem. We need to be, I need to be able to do a block level recovery. Sally in accounting, she deleted that email. Turns out she really needs it. And what we found is in the growth of the cyber threat landscape, that data protection and backups in general have just become a key and integral part of that solution. So knowing that and seeing how it mitigates a lot of the risks that are in the environments, you're now starting to see it mentioned extensively in cyber insurance requirements. Not only do you have backups, but are they immutable? Are they offsite? How often are you testing them? All those things. It wasn't good enough just to say, yep, we've got backups. And it turns out it's, some old tapes in a metal cabinet that, well, we didn't test them, so we didn't know that the tapes had degraded. Or my favorite urban legend was, the folks who stored their backup tapes next to their mechanical room, and every time that elevator counterbalance or counterweight would go past it, it would just demagnetize all the tapes. They didn't know until they had an audit. Luckily, it was an audit and not an attack, where they had to figure out where that was an issue. You're also starting to see it work its way into compliance requirements, whether that's a regulatory compliance or if that's something that's industry standard, like a PCI or something like that. Those are things they're going to ask you about. I know with us pursuing a SOC 2 attestation, that's one of the controls that we look at is how often are we testing our backups? Again, that immutability. If you have a backup, can it be changed or not? And I think Randy will get a little more into that. And that's super important. Now I'll speak on that here in a couple of bullets. And then of course, ransomware it's not going away. And it's hitting businesses of every size. I had a conversation with a client that we consult with and said, well, I never see any businesses like mine, in the papers. I see the Microsofts, I see the Sony, I see, the Colonial Pipeline hack, earlier this year, or, those big organizations. And you just have to remember that it's not that you're not big enough to be attacked. It's you're not big enough to warrant a headline, which is the unfortunate truth with that. So every business is being targeted, especially as the sort of top tier verticals in your finance and health sectors. They're tied by regulation. They have to be super locked down. So just like anybody else trying to rob a house, they're going to look for a softer, easier target. And so that brings us to a couple of types of solutions. And I think all of you on this call, if you've had to do any kind of purchasing or product, you're probably tired of seeing the letters AAS, but that's what we're going to. As a service is a delivery model that is starting to work better for those who want to focus more on the operational expenditure rather than huge capital outlays. So when we look at backups as a service versus disaster recovery as a service, backups as a service is just a good way to safeguard your data. It's going to be somewhere offsite. It's going to be again placing that immutable storage with limited interaction, and we're going to set it as a sort of a data deep freeze. Disaster recovery as a service sort of takes that to the next level, because with backups as a service, you have to have infrastructure to restore to. Depending on your organization, depending on your personnel constraints or your business constraints, you may not have time to stand up that entire infrastructure. And so what DRAS wishes to do aims to do is provide that infrastructure that you can just roll, roll from your backup straight into a recovered environment. And for that, you're just sort of regulating how long your downtime is. You're preparing for that bounce back. I always tell the folks out here, moving to the Midwest was kind of weird because we have tornadoes here in Kansas, but I'm an East Coast guy. And so one of the things we always had to look at was, hurricanes are coming. We can't block them, we can't get out of the way, but we can prepare for them in such a way that we're able to recover quickly. So whether that's sandbagging the Waffle House or boarding up windows, the idea is we're going to go through it, but how quickly can we get back on our feet? How resilient is our IT organization to get us back into business? And when we have these conversations I hope that you're having within your organization, what does it look like D+1 for us to stand back up and be in business? And that's where backup and disaster recovery as a service come into play. The last section there is, aren't backups enough? I've got backups. I keep them off site, but why do I need somebody else servicing those? Well, one, again, as Dana mentioned, it's a headcount game. Anybody who's trying to hire in the technology field right now, especially within security or specialized infrastructure engineering, it's really hard to find candidates. So a lot of times being able to sort of help mitigate that risk to your organization is bringing in, an expertise that you may not have in-house. Backups, I used to, my early days as an IT manager, backups are backups. And then I get to, work with engineers and realize that it can get complicated sometimes, but at the same time, how do we set that up to get you back in play? The other thing is, recovery requires infrastructure, just like I mentioned in the last bullet. You've got to have somewhere to put your data to recover, to get to that recovery point. And then downtime. One of the things you get to weigh out as a business is, what does that quantitative risk equation look like? Does paying for disaster recovery services, is that going to be less than the revenue lost per hour, per day, per week of downtime? I absolutely can assure you that I would hope that your CFO or your chief financial person in your organization knows exactly how much revenue you need to run per day to keep the lights on. So that's a real math problem for them to handle. So with that being said, again, this is how we want to look at it from the business standpoint. How do I mitigate some of these risks, transfer this risk, and just address it as an overall strategy?
So one thing I wanted to bring up to Chris kind of hit on it, but that recovery requires infrastructure, right? I mean, long gone are the days where you could, turn around and procure infrastructure in a couple of days, maybe a week, couple of weeks, right? With the pandemic thing, it's shown us, lead times right now on certain specific pieces of equipment and gear can be as long as 6 to 9 months. So if that was your backup and contingency DR as a strategy, was to have offsite backups and then recovered a piece of hardware we're going to pick up and redeploy, that has been proven to be completely wrong in the last, obviously, 2 years over the course of the pandemic, as we've seen the extenuating impacts of the pandemic on parts, lead times, and across the entire supply chain from that perspective. So that's really one of the other things that we take a look at too when we're having conversations that has really driven a lot of conversations that I've had in the last 1.5 to 2 years, has been really looking at, okay, yeah, you have backups, but how long can you actually, and this gets back into the, how much does that CFO know it costs you per day? How long can the business actually afford to be down before it can't open its doors back up again and you're going to have to just close it and no longer be a business anymore? So make sure you're having those conversations with your business owners too, in terms of these technologies as we go forward. So again, Chris kind of mentioned on it earlier, but immutable storage, what is it, right? And this is one of the big things you'll hear talked a lot about in the industry. It's a key technology that really helps prevent against the biggest bane in the security and business continuity world today, which is ransomware, right? Because the whole idea of the bad actors in ransomware is they're going to go out, they're going to target your data, they're going to encrypt it, and in a lot of cases, and we've worked with customers, unfortunately, who have been in a situation where a lot of these ransomware agents are smart enough now that they will actually go target and encrypt and then delete your backups first, and then compromise the rest of your environment. So if you don't have a solution that can't be tampered with from your backup, so that again they can't encrypt it, they can't delete it, it's going to persist no matter what they try to do. That's step number one in trying to counteract the threats of ransomware and what we're seeing these bad actors do in the industry today. And so that's a key piece of this information that you need to have. And again, the other thing here is, again, immutable storage is great if it's local, but it also needs to be on your offsite, right? Because again, that's the other piece. In case they get to that offsite target and try to compromise that, you need to make sure you have immutability in both the local retention copy and then this copy you're shipping to the offsite location as well. As we talked about, offsite copy, absolutely key. And this is really kind of preventing against the local compromise on the network from ransomware, or that fire, hurricane, tornado, whatever it might be, natural disaster that happens in your data center. right? If you don't have a secondary copy of that data, you are in a really, really bad spot. Now, hopefully we're all have matured organizations enough that we actually have backups in a secondary location already. But if you don't, I would highly urge you to have a hard look at that, because that's step number one, right? You have to have that before you can really kind of move on to that DR or DR as a service. But that's kind of the groundwork to move on to the next conversation. And that really gets us into then disaster recovery, right? And that's how do we recover from an incident, whether it be a natural disaster, act of God, or heaven forbid, it's a bad actor doing something very malicious in our organization or into our data and our systems. And again, the big thing about disaster recovery is it's a documented process procedure. You've got a run book, you've executed it, you're testing it at least annually, and then updating the process and procedures around those. That's the key, guys, because again, we're back to what is the recovery point objective, which is what point in time can we recover data to? So how often are you backing it up? In a lot of cases, most folks are on a 24-hour recovery point objective, to where you're going to back up nightly. That means you could have up to 23 and 45 minutes worth of data loss if they hit you right before your next backup triggers, right? So these are key things to keep in mind and think about as you're going through this. And then recovery time objective is the next big one we've talked about, right? And that's really understanding how much time, once you declare a recovery incident, is it going to take you to actually fully get your systems back up and supporting the critical business functions so you can keep revenue moving in your organization. And that's where we get into really talking about what is the lead time on hardware? Do you already have infrastructure that's on lease that you can immediately spin up into? Those kind of conversations need to happen in order to make sure you can meet those recovery time objectives. So those are the key elements as we go through kind of the rest of the conversation that we're going to unpack around what the platform delivers, what the services entail from assured data protection as we go forward. And again, talking about, because these are key things that a lot of times get overlooked, is a recovery point objective. What does it mean? We kind of went over that a little bit, but again, how often are you taking those backups? At what point in time can you actually recover to? In the event that you could just say you're going to recover lost data, right? How far back can you go? And then the recovery time is the very similar kind of thing. Again, we talked about how quickly can you get recovered, and then the DR, right? That's absolutely critical again. And again, the testing, right? You need to have a plan. It needs to be documented. You need to be executing tests against that. If you're not doing that, your organization is seriously in jeopardy with today's bad actors and ransomware that's out in the area. And we've seen it, unfortunately. Again, I don't want that to happen to any of you, but the reality is it's out there, it's here to stay, and it's only becoming more prevalent, not less, unfortunately, in today's environment.
Yeah, Randy,
So go ahead.
I was going to piggyback on that, and also consider too that not all bad actors are malicious. We've all been and heard stories of somebody clicking something and losing data within, something completely innocent, just a misconfiguration or something like that too. These are things that we want to integrate into that risk sort of assessment as well.
With that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Brian from Assured Data Protection.
All right. Thank you very much, Randy and Watson. My name is Brian Dutton. I'm the Director of Sales over here at Assured Data Protection, and I want to take a moment to introduce everyone to Steve Billingsley over at Bartlett. Steve, are you on with us as well?
I am.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us today. Steve and Bartlett have been with us for, I want to say 4 years now.
Yes.
So we go back a little bit. And I was wondering, Steve, if you could just tell everyone a little bit about you and your organization and give us an idea of some of the business problems you had and how we were able to help solve them.
Absolutely. So Bartlett Cox General Contractors, we're based in Texas. We're going to hit a little north of $800 million in revenue this year. Work primarily in the K through 12, higher education, healthcare, and mixed use residential commercial construction. Headquartered in San Antonio. I've been with the company in various roles, most recently as the IT director for 10 years now. When I started, there was a few old tapes that they claimed were successful backups, and did not take long to find out that that was not the case. So we looked around and stood up a solution that we sacrificed functionality for in terms of expedience and just getting some protection. But it didn't take too long to outgrow that. And in our going through and looking around, we stumbled across Rubric and loved the technology. We just didn't have the headcount. We run extremely lean on the IT team here. And so finding somebody who could take that great Rubrik technology and help us manage it was how we came across Assured Data Protection. And it's worked out fabulously for us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Steve. And now, as you're looking at different types of solutions, you said Rubrik was a great solution for you. I mean, is there anything in particular that Rubrik could provide that made you choose Rubrik over other options?
Coming from where we were, we did not have an immutable backup, and replication offsite was extremely problematic. And the Rubrik really solved both of those problems for us right off the bat, and it was scalable. As being with this solution for several years, we started off with one brick and have added over time as our business has grown. So it was easy for us to continue to scale.
Awesome. And then from the Assured side, I mean, obviously you said you were lean and we were helping with the management piece. I'm a sales guy, so when I talk to people, I sell them a solution. Can you tell us a little bit about, after the sales process took place, you were implemented, how was Assured there for you in the coming days, months, years?
Could not speak more highly about our experience with Assured Data Protection. The onboarding process was, I've been doing IT work for more than 20 years now, probably one of the best implementation processes I've ever been involved with. It was seamless. The communication was excellent. They alternately had staff come on site or work with us remotely, depending on what the need was. And we were up and running. That solution that we had kind of in place for a period of time wasn't providing us any protection at all. So getting moved over to this new solution with Rubrik and Assured Data Protection, timing was very important. And you all were extremely responsive with that. I mean, it was smooth from I don't remember, I can't quote the exact timeline anymore because it's been several years, but it did not take us very long to get up and running and get our key assets protected.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great, Steve. I appreciate the information that you're sharing today. We should just end it right here because that was so amazing. But no, we'll keep going. Is there anything else, Steve, that you want to add? I mean, we appreciate your time and you jumping on with us.
We did have one of those real life security incidents that hit us back earlier this year, and I can tell you that we rolled over onto the offsite Assured Data Protection solution and did not miss a payment to a vendor, payment to our employees. Had we not told anybody what was going on outside of IT, nobody would have been any the wiser. There was just a small amount of downtime that would not have raised any eyebrows because we just took some time to evaluate carefully that we needed to roll over. But everything was seamless. I mean, it's exactly the reason that we went down this road was to cover us in that incident. And we came out far better than others who suffered that same fate.
That's great. I'm glad we could be there for you, Steve. And thank you for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's hop into some of the solutions that we're talking about here today. So we're going to walk through a quick summary. We're going to talk about who Assured Data Protection is, why we're here. We're going to talk about Rubrik. For those of you who don't know who Rubrik is, we're going to give you a brief overview of the technology and why we picked them. And we'll talk how we work together with Rubrik and Choice, and then some of the differentiators. So we'll walk through different ways you can consume this technology. So let's start with Assured Data Protection. So we are Rubrik's oldest and largest managed service provider. This is all we do. We're backup guys. We're an international organization. So we have two main headquarters, one in Herndon, Virginia, and that's where I am today. Then we have one in the UK as well. So we have over 400 unique logos or customers all across the world. We're deployed in over 40 countries, and we have over 20 petabytes of data currently under management. Our US footprint is growing as far as data center locations. Our flagship facility is an Equinix facility in Ashburn, Virginia. That's where we host our multi-tenant Rubrik instance. So when we talk about putting Rubrik on customer premise, this would be that second site or replication target where we have our Rubrik cloud. So that's our DR site. So if on-prem went away, we could bring you up within that Equinix facility. We're expanding our footprint, as I mentioned. We've got Chicago and Dallas, and then we are being enabled in other Cyxtera data center locations across the globe as well. So it's very exciting times over here at Assured. I'm going to focus on US base criteria here as we move forward, but if anyone needs to talk about international locations, we can take that offline in a separate session. Problems that we solve for. So these are some of the standard ones. We love to be challenged. So if there's opportunities out there to find new problems to solve, we got the right guys to do it. But typically IT staff constrained. I mean, Steve talked about the fact that they're very lean. You know, we're the backup admins that are 24/7, 365, and we've been operators in this space for about 7 years. So we've got the team available whenever you need them to help out with whatever you need. It could be managing your backups, monitoring your backups, giving you reports to make sure that your auditors are prepared with the information that they need. That's all part of the solution. So being that extra man or that extra staff available to focus only on backup and DR, so you can use your resources, your technical resources, to focus more on your mission. Meaning that if you're a bank, you know, backup and DRs are important, but your technical people can go focus on being better bankers. We'll focus on the backup and the DR. Urgency. So if you've got tight timelines, again, getting hardware, software shipped out, purchased, shipped out, implemented in time. It's taking longer these days. We keep stuff in stock, so it's available. So if you've got something that needs to be done immediately, we are able to help those customers out. So urgency is a big one we can solve for. Pain points when it comes to remote locations. This is where we shine. We've got the ability to help out customers with geographically distributed data. Not only can we help get these install pretty much remotely or virtually, we can also make sure that everything's done in a single pane of glass so that our customers can see all these locations through one interface. We can also triage and remediate issues very easily through that pane of glass as well. And I'll get deeper into that. Cloud first, a lot of customers we talk to are either dabbling in the cloud or moving right into the cloud. The Rubrik, the ability to securely move data into the cloud is something that we focus on. So that migration into the cloud, and then of course, protecting your data once it gets there. We can help you do that. Data center consolidation, you know, people that are trying to move out of their existing footprint because they had a DR solution that they were never using, but paying all this money for the infrastructure. We help those customers, or the ones that just don't have a second data center, but need a second copy and a DR approach. We can help do that. We do host all the main hypervisors in our data center. So that helps when it comes to being able to bring up our customers in our second site. It's much different than maybe a hyperscale cloud model, again, which I'll talk about in here in just a minute. Complexity, again, operators in the space for a very long time. We've seen a lot of difficult and interesting things and helped a lot of customers along the way. So a lot of knowledge here. Our senior leadership team, again, has been in the backup and DR space for decades. And then how you consume your technology. We're going to walk through it here in a separate slide, but we can offer models that are operationalized, meaning we own it, we maintain it, and we deliver as a service. Or we can do CapEx, traditional, you buy it, you own it, but we give you a service on top of it. So these are some of the general problems. But again, come test us out, see if we can solve the hard ones. Solution topology. So you sign up as a customer today. What are we going to deliver you? Well, if you look at this in the customer environment, you're going to see a Rubrik on-site appliance. So for those of you who don't know what Rubrik is next-gen backup technology. They focus on security and data mobility so that you can move data where it needs to go with that secure focus, that security focus. Randy and Watson were talking about immutability earlier. That's a huge word when it comes to Rubrik, because they have a proprietary file share system where you cannot change a backup once it's created. They have removed that modify piece to it. That is much different than some of the other immutable solutions you hear about in our space. There's other providers that configure immutability. And when I hear that, I think, well, if it's configured, can it be misconfigured? Can it be changed? And that's really where Rubrik shines. So anyways, we can deliver a Rubrik appliance on premise. So you have local backup capabilities, and we deliver that as a service. So that gives you another copy locally, and you can actually live mount or stand up VMs on that appliance. There's storage capability there. So if you need to stand up a VM or two, you can do it locally. A lot of the disasters, the recoveries that we have to do are done right there on site. So local appliance, we give you archive options. If you want to use your own S3 buckets, you're pointing to the cloud, you got your own NAS device, you can do that. We have options as well. So if you want the easy button and have us take care of all of it, we can provide archive. If you look at the right side of this, this slide here, you'll see our data center. So the next step is replicating data to a second site. So this gives you your offsite copy that is available for quick recovery. So if you've got recovery point objectives, or recovery time objectives where you need to get your data back fast, this is how it's done. Again, it's a multi-tenant Rubrik instance that has the ability to stand up VMs on our side as well. And that's where we start talking about disaster recovery as a service options. I've got a whole other slide that really focuses on that. So we'll table that for 1 second. This is a solution, again, that gives you on-site, second site, DRAS, but there's also that management piece. So we have a proprietary technology called Protect View or Assured View, and that as an MSP enables us to be able to monitor the health of your backups. Again, 24/7, 365, we're eyes in the sky. If a green light turns red, we jump on it. We try to solve that issue. If we don't have the correct rights and permissions, we reach out to you and we work on it together. Reporting. So we memorialize everything that happens in a 24-hour period and send you out that report. More for auditing purposes, not really a fun read, but it's available for you. And then there's that whole management aspect. So we have the ability to help you out when it comes to data retention and growth, so that that box that we put on site doesn't get all filled up right away. So we use best practices for that. And then just the ability to help manage that environment when it comes to recoveries. So whether it's local, on our side of the house, we're there to help you out with that. So that's a basic solution topology. I know that's a lot of information, but this is an important slide for us. Let's hop into deployment and service options. We touched on this briefly. So you have the ability to buy the infrastructure yourself. So if you have the money to buy the Rubrik appliance and you want to own it and maintain it and appreciate that asset, we could do that for you. Operationalizing it means that we own it, we maintain it, and we deliver it as a service. So you're out of the business of worrying about blinking lights. If it breaks, we fix it. If we can't fix it, we replace it. This is traditionally what we see the most of, is people looking to operationalize the tech and pay monthly for it. And there's terms and commits for operationalizing the technology. We have appliance build options. So if you need to have more of a consumption-based model because your data is growing due to acquisition, or you have certain times of the year where you use more data than others, then we can find a way to build it so that you're paying for what you're using. And we also work with customers that are on the smaller side. So if you have either the remote sites or you don't have a very large footprint that you need to protect, we can take Rubrik technology and put it on what we call an air device, and we drive that cost down market. And this is where we really shine as well. So if you're 2 to 30 terabytes, we've got solutions that leverage enterprise grade technology, but at a lower cost because it's a lower size or smaller size. And then management only. So we do work with existing Rubrik customers. So if you already own Rubrik, you made a great choice. But we can come in and help manage that for you. So you can leverage our proprietary technology and our people to help monitor and report and do that daily management. So a lot of different ways we can solve problems for a lot of different types of customers. I'm sure there's a slide in here that talks about all of our different types of customers, but we have small, I call them mom and pop shops, but say like a small dentist or just a small local customers, all the way up to folks like Disney. So it really doesn't matter what your size is. If you have data that needs to be protected, we can help you. Service tiers. So when we get into how to price things out or size things out, there's 2 things we need to account for. One is that device that we're putting on premise. We got to figure out how big of a device to send you. So you'll work with your choice team to figure out what we need to size an environment. And then the next piece is the tier of service. So I've given you guys a lot of information over the last 20 minutes or so, but 3 basic tiers, pretty simple. All 3 tiers, you get a Rubrik appliance. If you're looking to operationalize, you get the management, monitoring, and reporting, and the ability to archive. That's a tier 1. Obviously, as you go up the scale, the pricing increases. So at tier 2, you get second site replication. So now you've got another copy, Rubrik copy, in a secondary location, our data center. Or a tier 3 option is that disaster recovery as a service. That's our bread and butter. That's a real differentiator for us. That's why I kind of saved it for last, so we can walk through what does that mean? What is DR as a service to us? So what you get, we offer custom run books and boot order scripting. So the asteroid hits, your on-prem environment is gone. You're driving over to Starbucks 3 towns down to get an internet connection. We are already bringing up your VMs in the correct order with non-human intervention. We offer a dedicated virtual firewall instance. We use pfSense. It's an open source technology, but if you wanted to host your own physical or virtual of your preference, we can do that in our data center as well. So different firewall options. The 2 DR tests per year. So this is a big one. You get 6 days per test where we waive the resource consumption and we bring up a copy of your environment within our skin. You can do whatever you want during that testing time. A lot of people want to test the network connectivity. Customers were once pointed to point A, now need to get to point B. How do we do that? But we have people that are now doing pen testing and mock ransomware type attacks. I mean, there's different things that you can leverage within that DR environment. And that is in a bubble, so it doesn't affect your actual environment. It's just that DR side of the house. You also get a 4x32 bundle of resources. So if you want to spin up a passive instance of Active Directory or whatever application makes the most sense for your business, we can do so. If you've got other critical VMs that need to be in a standby or passive state, we can offer up more reserved resources, but 4x32 comes with the initial package. That being said, if you're in a disaster and you need to be there for a while, we have on-demand resources, which means you only pay for them when you need them. Those are priced out monthly, but billed and metered hourly, so we pay for what you use. So that is disaster recovery as a service to us. And just to kind of touch on what the gentleman were talking about earlier, is this is infrastructure that's in place in our data center. So you can leverage it when you need it. If ransomware hits your on-prem environment, typically insurance companies, legal organizations are going to put a lockdown or a hold on that environment. So you can't recover to the infrastructure you have locally. So where are you going to point it to? This is a great option, again, because we host all the main hypervisors. So if you're VMware, Hyper-V, AHV, Nutanix, there's no conversion issues. You can leverage us. And when it's time to get back to steady state, we do a reverse replication. It's a much different story than if you try to do this in, say, a hyperscale cloud provider. It's very easy to get your data in the cloud. It's a little harder to get it out. So for customers that are looking in that direction and want to try it, I always ask, well, can you test it? Have you tested it? You know, did it work for you? So anyways, that's disaster recovery as a service over here at Assured. Wanted to pull up my NASCAR slide real quick, just to give you an idea of some of the different types of customers that we work with. So you'll see all types of different customers, retail, state and local, all folks that we've helped with our solutions. All right. So that is the presentation. We wanted to open it up a little bit for any Q&A. I can always go back to any slides if you need to, bring it up in more detail. But we'll go ahead and get that started. Any questions in the house?
Yeah, if you guys want to click on the Q&A button down the bottom of the webinar link and put any of your questions there, we'll be happy to go ahead and try to answer those as they come in.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for it to come in, some questions that I get asked from time to time is, can we try it? Is there a way to get a taste of what this service feels like? So we've got different options when it comes to proof of concepts that we can talk about, especially if you're already a Rubrik customer. So I'd love to hear if there's any existing Rubrik customers out there, because there's some very easy proof of concept options there as well. Another thing I want to throw out there is you guys met Steve today. We brought Steve here. We love Steve. He's been a customer for a while. If you wanted to talk to one of our customers that, say, is in your region or in the same vertical as yourself, we've got happy customers. Our customers, once they're with us, never leave us. So we're happy to provide other references or conversations to chat with y'all. Another thing I could throw out there real quick, demos. So if anyone is interested and wants to hear more, obviously we can set up other sales type conversations, but most people want to skip past me and get to the smart guys in the back room, right? So we can provide a demonstration of the technology. So it typically takes anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. We'll bring up the interface. We'll show you how to create backup sets. We can show you, we can blow up a server and bring it back on the DR side and show you what that looks like. The other thing I didn't touch on yet was M365. So if you wanted to focus just on M365 or hear more about that, that is definitely something we can get into. We've got different ways to protect those environments and a demo to give you an idea of what that looks and feels like. There's other things out there that we can help back up. So Microsoft Dynamics, Salesforce.com, the conversation gets deeper than just your production VMs. So happy to dig deeper in that and a side conversation as well.
So we had a question here real quick. What kind of reporting or communications provided as part of the partnership with the customer?
Sure. So our Protect View provides you a daily report of what's happened in your environment. But there's more than just that. If you are a DR customer and you're doing DR testing, there's reports and certifications that come out of that. So we make sure that auditors see that you've completed testing and it was successful. So there's reporting there. We have a support group as well that can provide additional reporting if they need more. And then we also, when you become a customer, we have a client services team that supports all of our customers. So you will have a point of contact to help schedule any ticket reviews you might want to have, or quarterly business reviews. That's all part of this relationship as well. So it's more of just an email coming out daily. You have people that you can work with to meet your specific needs and tailor this relationship to exactly what you're looking for.
And then when it came in, Brian, as well, specifically around, do you also monitor for ransomware and data discovery if using Rubrik Security Cloud?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different Rubrik tools that we can leverage as part of this relationship. You know, Rubrik Radar is a big one, right? So if you are looking for the ability to go into the backups and see where the bad actors have been, right? Because sometimes there's bad actors in your environment and you could be backing that data up for a while. People always ask, well, how do you know? What do you do if you backed up tainted data? Well, Rubrik has a tool that leverages AI where we can find anomalies in that backup to the point where we can pinpoint when and where it happened, so we know, you know, what we can recover from, what point in time we need to recover from, so that we're not recovering that tainted data. So there's a lot of different tools that we could leverage there.
Thanks, Brian. We got another that came in here. Does Rubrik only run on hardware you provide, or can it be deployed on existing on-prem hardware?
So there's a lot of different ways we can deploy Rubrik. So there's Rubrik hardware that the customer can buy. There's Rubrik hardware that we operationalize and deliver as a service. And Choice has different ways that they can leverage deploying Rubrik as well. So to answer your question, it doesn't have to be on our specific hardware or Rubrik hardware. There's other ways that we can deploy the technology. Now, that being said, you know, best practices state that you should have a separate backup environment from your production. So we wouldn't recommend putting Rubrik on a production server, because if that goes down, you lose that production and your backup. So, you know, it's a conversation that needs to be had to make sure we're doing right by everybody.
Nope, perfect. And that's kind of where we're at is too. Again, so you can run it virtualized, but again, best practice would be that you have disparate hardware and infrastructure that's running that backup infrastructure. And that's obviously always going to be a best practice. So next one we have is what is the kind of guarantee or SLA that comes along with the service? Can you talk a little bit about that, Brian, and what that looks like from the Assured Data Protection Service?
So you're talking about if there's downtime or anything along those lines?
Sure, like what kind of a guarantee or service level is kind of included as part of the service?
Well, I know we have Andrew Eva on here as well, and I wanted to give him a chance to pipe in. So Andrew is our CTO. Andrew, are you on, and do you want to take the SLA question?
Sure, I'd be happy to take the SLA question. So our SLAs are all contract driven, really around what are the needs of our customer. So we have a response time SLA that covers how quickly we get back to you, how quickly we answer the questions that are brought in, how quickly there are issues with backups or replication, and what that looks like. So there's an SLA around that. Misses around that, of course, have penalties and things associated with that. In terms of guarantees, RPOs and RTOs are certainly things that can be negotiated in the contract. We have base levels that are included in each one of those contracts as well. So there's a lot of different options and choice to build and cater the guarantees to match the business of our customer and align through our partners as well. So yes, there are, and the more specific they get, we can answer them individually. There's another question that came up. The DC and Ashburn was mentioned. Do we have other geographies where data can be stored? Absolutely. We've got data center locations here in Ashburn, as we're already aware of, as well as Chicago. We also have north of England and Amsterdam, and then are available to deploy in other locations as well. Pretty much anywhere where Equinix lives, we can get your data center up and running inside of there. We also operate outside of the major cloud providers, including Azure and AWS.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I think that's all all the questions we had. Assured Data Protection team, Choice team, thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm going to close out this webinar and then be on the lookout for that survey. It's just a couple questions. It should just take you just a minute. So thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.